Hello and welcome back to Flute Bootcamp. In this lesson we're going to learn a new note called D. So let's go ahead and start by reviewing all of our finger positions. Starting with the left hand, thumb. Skip the top key, index finger goes on the second key. Skip the third key, middle finger goes on the fourth key. Ring finger on the next key. Right hand, little finger. And then fill in bam, 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 the next three round keys like so. Now, from this position, what you're going to do is for the first time, you're going to remove your your right hand little finger off of its key. So you're going to keep your first, second, and third finger on your right hand, press those keys down, and remove your little finger. We're also going to now remove our first finger with our left hand. Okay, so I like to call this note the bunny ears note to help you remember that your left index finger and your right little finger are not pressing down their keys. Okay, so you could kind of stick them up and wiggle them around like that just to make sure, and then just kind of let them relax. But that is the quote-unquote bunny ears note. Okay, so thumb, left hand, and then the first finger is not pressing its key. Next one, next one. Okay, and then right hand, only the little finger is not pressing its key. The other three are. Okay, now that position is D. The note is called D. So once you have your fingers in position, let's go ahead and play that note D. Ready? Okay, this is the highest note that you've learned so far. So as the notes continue to get higher, we're going to use a little bit faster air. So the higher the note, the faster the air. The lower the note, the slower the air. Okay? Now what I want you to do is take your fingers off, maybe even put your flute down, and then pick it up and try to find that D fingering again as quickly as you can. Remember, bunny ears, right? Once you got your D, let's play it again. Okay, now that we have our D, I want you to notice that our quote-unquote bunny ears fingers, our right little finger and our left index finger, those are the two fingers only that you use for C. So remember we learned C in the last lesson, and that was just two fingers, left index, right little. Okay, and the thumb was off for C, and none of the other fingers were pressing their keys. So C, which we learned in the last lesson, and D, which we just learned, are with your fingers, they are the opposite. Okay, so what I want you to do, this is the trickiest finger switch to get kind of at first. Okay, so what I want you to do is place your flute on your left shoulder, like so, and just practice switching from C to D, and just do that until you're really comfortable at it. Okay, at first you might have to go one hand or one finger at a time just to make sure, okay, got my C, this finger, make sure you're not pressing the thumb key for C, okay, and then bam, got my D, and I'm able to switch. So go one hand or one finger at a time until you get it, and then gradually speed it up, and the idea is to be able to switch all of your fingers at the exact same time, okay? All the fingers have to switch simultaneously. So this is something you can do. You can just walk around your bedroom or your house with your flute on your shoulder and just kind of practice this while you're doing other things, okay? Or sitting there watching TV, just put your flute on your shoulder. You don't have to play, just practice moving the fingers. You can practice reviewing all of your fingerings this way, okay? All right, so let's keep practicing that. D, and I'll hold it out so you can see it. D, C, D, C, D, C. I'll pause there so you can check, make sure your C is like mine. And D. Pause here so you can check, make sure your D, thumb, middle, ring, no index. Right hand, 1, 2, 3, no little. Okay, bunny ears. And these two fingers, your bunny ears fingers, those are your C fingers. So press those down, take the other ones up, and that's your C. Okay, once you're really good at switching D and C just your fingers, not playing, then it's time to play. Okay, so we're going to play an exercise here, practice switching these two notes. So we're going to play D, slow, then C, slow. And we're going to do that 2 times. So D, C, D, C. D, C, D, C, like DC Comics, but twice, but slow. All right, so find your D fingers. Flute up. Ready? Okay, now if you had trouble with that, go back to just the fingers first, and then try playing it again. Now, we're going to play the same thing, DC, DC, but twice as fast. Still pretty slow, but just a little faster than before. So like D, C, D, C, about that fast. Okay, D fingers, flute up, ready. Okay, now let's try putting that together. We're going to go D, slow, C, slow, D again, slow, C again, slow, and then a little bit faster, D, C, D, C, and then one more D. Okay, so it's just alternating back and forth, starting with D and switching back and forth between D and C. 4 slow, 4 fast, and then one more D. Okay, let's try that together. 1, 2, ready, D. Okay, so practice that exercise until you're really, really good at it. Then you can switch it and go C, D. So play the same exercise, but starting with C instead of D, and just doing reverse order of the notes. Okay, and practice that until you're really good at it. Okay, once you're really good at that, I will meet you in the next lesson.